the ethos is very, very collaborative, very like, let's connect now. How can I help you? And it's all very genuine. And I think it has to do with just that speed and pace of technology and movements and building in Web3.
Welcome to this River Community Session with Po On Yeung. She's a community builder, tech evangelist, and a digital nomad who I met through the All-In community. Hey, Po On, thank you for being here.
Hey, Rae, so good to see you again.
It's very cool. I know we met at the women's brunch, but it's very cool to take some time because never have time to chat at these big events.
I know you've had a few nice online events and it's great to jump in, but I know there's other people asking questions and this is some nice one-on-one time.
So why don't you, for the benefit of anyone who's tuning in, tell us about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Po On. It's a Cantonese name. I'm a third culture kid. So born in Hong Kong, grew up in Canada, moved to the Bay Area 6 years ago. So now I'm in the US. I've worked in nonprofit, higher ed, tech, most recently at Twitter, Coinbase, and a Series A crypto startup. And looking back, I guess I'd really say I am a community builder at heart and tech evangelizer. Love getting fired up about new ideas, helping others to get those ideas over the finish line. And that's probably why, I'm wearing this Twitter shirt. I loved our annual hack weeks. I'm surrounded by a family of entrepreneurs. So I've been going to hack weeks for a long time, or just, do a lot of brainstorming, ideating around the dinner table. And just super excited to have this conversation and talk about both of our times in San Francisco, how that was a transformative time for both of us, and share any lessons we've both taken away from those formative years.
Yeah, we can definitely talk. Yeah, it's like a polarizing city. I feel like it's always in the news. So cool. And then I also know you've hosted a bunch of All-In events. How did you get involved with All-In?
Yeah, it was the pandemic and my husband and I were nomading. That's when I was at Twitter and we had our whole, work from home forever policy. Oh, I guess that was back then. But we were nomading in Hawaii, and then we bought our very first car and we're driving around Utah. And so I had to pick interesting podcasts and things to listen to. And the All-In, I don't know how it landed on my suggested feed, but I played it. And I still remember it was this episode where they were fighting.
Yeah, and you're like, what are we listening to?
I mean, maybe that's every episode, but I think it was Zach saying something about his airtime and fighting with Jason. And I played that episode with my husband, and he just thought, wow, these are very real people. It's not just talking points. And then we got really interested in their take on tech and startups. And so we'd play that for all of our long rides around Utah.
And then you've hosted a bunch of events, mostly in San Francisco, or?
Actually, because I'm a nomad in Vegas here, there's a fellow named Andy. He's been really great. He's actually hosted at his house, which I think is pretty unique for some of the All-In community where it
is rare.
Yeah. Very, very generous of him to open up his house, and he cooks for us. And I think you all have sent him some nice packages to thank him for hosting. I think the Super Gut granola bars were sent to him.
Yeah. I think he bought a t-shirt because I was like trying to test out this Shopify integration on River, and I didn't want to do it with a real customer because I'm like, what if it's shit? Yeah. I mean, it's definitely shit. I don't want to try it on a customer. So I was like, I'll do some All-In t-shirts. And then only 9 people bought t-shirts. So, and then Supergut had sent me a box, like 10 boxes of Supergut bars because I was hosting in New York, like a really big New York event. So I was like, I'll just stuff some Supergut bars in there just to like sweeten the deal to thank them for like buying this shitty t-shirt through this like shitty integration. But yeah, Andy's great. He hosts like he's been hosting like reading club, book clubs. Like, yeah, he's a fantastic host. And then what have you been hosting? Because you said you've been nomading it.
Yeah, I mean, so specifically for All-In, it's been more supporting Andy. Like he's the lead. I show up. I help keep our WhatsApp group. That's been our, I guess, vehicle of choice to keep each other updated on comments on the episode or just what's happening in our lives. So more of the events I've hosted has been with the Vegas startup community. So I started a women in tech and startups lunch every 2 to 3 months.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's been fun. And then also just doing my own, because I'm in crypto and Web3, I actually just hosted a Farcaster meetup yesterday. That's
Nice.
a decentralized social, which you know about, but just for.
I do, but I should ask you, like, so I'm on Farcaster, but I don't really understand, like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I joined it because Taylor in LA, who's also like at the All In crew, she tweeted, so I wanted to get Balaji as a user on River
Mhm.
for network state meetups because yeah, I mean, I listened to his episode on Lex the day it came out in its entirety, which was also the same day that Midnight's came out, Taylor Swift's album. If that just tells you
Oh,
anything about my
I'm
personality.
yes.
I listened to both in the same day. It was a weird day.
I mean, this is why we're all friends. Me, you, and Taylor.
Yeah, and when I told like when I finally got Balaji on the phone and like I told him that, he just there was a really really long pause and he's just like, "Okay," and then moved on. I was like,
Okay,
"Great."
no comment on the Swiftie part. Not
But
a midnight era kind of man.
yeah, not a Taylor Swift Midnight's fan, I guess. Was I saying? Oh yeah, but Taylor. So I met her through All In Crowd, and she tweeted saying, "Hey, Balaji's going to be doing an AMA on Farcaster. If you've been wanting to get in front of him, this is your best chance." I'm like, okay, I'm like almost 40. Let me figure out this new app. Like, what even is this app? I'm downloading this app, and then so I find the AMA. It's a text AMA. So I ask him my question. It's a week in advance. No one likes my comment. So I'm assuming he's not going to respond to it because no one else liked my comment. But he ended up responding to it because I said something like, "Hey, I watched your entire network state conference. Love the concepts. How are you going to bring those in real life and like get people to kind of
Mhm.
galvanize in person? Is this important to you?" And he said, "Actually, this is the top three most important things to me that I'm thinking about. If you want to help out, get a Luma account." And I was like, I was like, "Actually, I have a better idea. Would love to like tell you about what I'm building." And so we like that's how we got connected. And then he was my second angel check in River. But I still don't know what Farcaster is. Like I'm on there. So can you tell me?
Yeah, and just quick fun aside, just shout out to our friend Taylor. I remember I was in San Francisco at our
Okay.
office in the Mission, and she was getting on a call with you or leaving you a voice note. I forgot. I think it was a voice note, and she gave you the backstory of how you went on this AMA, put yourself out there, and got funding from Balaji. So I'm like, wait, I need to congratulate Ray too. That's so awesome. I love that. Like, let me say my couple
Amazing.
sentences as well.
Yeah, I'm just like, I hate texting. Like I want everything on desktop. so so I'm there, but I don't like I'm not in.
Yeah, no, but I guess, and then also one more side note on bringing us back together on All In and the brunch, because you and Taylor met at the brunch. I remember my first day joining the same startup as Taylor. You do these icebreakers and fun conversation at the dinners. And we both talked about our shared missed Elon opportunities or missed Elon
Mm,
stories. And because for me, I worked at Twitter prior, and he was supposed to speak to the whole team, but then he didn't show up. He, star LinkedIn, which was still interesting. And for her, it was that first All In summit where I think there were rumors of him speaking.
yeah,
So then
he just
yeah,
zoomed in. Yeah. Okay.
exactly. And then we bonded. Wait, you listen to this too? Not many women listen to it. And then she told me about this great brunch. And then fast forward last year, I got to go to the brunch and meet
Nice.
you. So just kind of fun how this
Amazing.
all connects. But a Farcaster, I guess, in short, is like Twitter or these messaging or news platforms. And the idea of Farcaster is it's actually decentralized. So if you wanted, you could take your content and your social graph with you. So an example with
Okay.
Twitter, ban certain people. In this case, you'd be able to still like access your content and take that with you.
Got it. I mean, River's kind of like that too. We give anyone who like the community organizers, we give them all their data so they could take it with them and do something else. So that's interesting. Yeah, I just haven't. I'm trying to keep up with all the socials and
There is a lot.
it's
The whole
crazy.
tension, right? Of even you and I, we're both big fans of the bridging the URL to IRL and doing these in person meetups. Even your very apt question, and at the same time, it's yeah, how do you balance that staying connected online, maybe in between events? That's more scalable. That's easier.
Yeah.
There's still so much value of actually getting to shake someone's hand or like give them a hug and get to know them in person.
Yeah, is it'll never be replaced ever. In fact, I think it's becoming more and more valuable as there's just a lot of bots and a lot of generative AI and just yeah, noise. Um, but so I'd love to hear about your story of moving to San Francisco because I know it's always like a coming of age for everyone, including me.
It really is. I still look back at how transformative that was, or even recently, I've talked to a few people about the show Silicon Valley. And
Yeah.
just once you move there, you actually see all that craziness, and you're like, oh, wow, this isn't just a show. But I guess it was 2018, and I had grown up my whole life in Vancouver, Canada. I had actually a very big community of friends from school, friends from work. My work also was very networked in that I was supporting startups, connecting them to the university. My first job was at a membership association. So again, getting to know anyone from big pharma to med tech startups. And so I came from already feeling very connected to different folks. I also volunteered a lot, was active in civic engagement, was chair of a young business association. So it's for anyone under 35 who wanted to get professional development, peer mentorship, attend events. So I lay that as context is that I felt like I knew a lot of people in Vancouver through work and volunteer. And when it was actually my husband who works in tech, he got transferred to SF that
Okay.
that it wasn't an intentional plan. It was more, okay, this is my husband. I'm going to go support him. This is our family decision. And I remember being quite intimidated of, oh, I have to make new friends. I have to figure out my career and build everything from scratch. And I actually had my sister, who's my version of an Asian tiger mom, like very tough. Good enough. That's a whole other conversation. She's like, yeah, Po On, you're not going to be special there. Like everyone in SF, they volunteer, they have a community, they're dabbling in
Mm,
startups, and so that also made me a bit intimidated.
yeah.
However, looking back, I think there's a few things I did that really helped me, and I actually like yes, I did take I think it was 8 months just to help people feel better. It wasn't right away that I landed at Twitter. It really was a long process of putting myself out there, making new friends, attending lots of events to eventually get my job. But there were, and I can go into any of these of what are my reflections on what helped me. I can go into like how the ecosystem of having events all the time helped me to make new friends. What do you think?
Yeah.
Where should we go?
I mean, yeah, I think like, did you go to the events with the plan of getting a job? Like that was your intention? Or were you just like, I'm just trying to get to know the city and make new friends and then you happen to get a job?
Yeah, it was both. Like, I definitely wanted to make new friends. And at the same time, I was on a 1 year sabbatical. So I had worked it out with my employer, which was higher ed university, and said, hey, I don't know what will happen. My husband has this job, but if I could get a 1 year sabbatical to just figure out my life, like, see, can we see a life here? Can I actually get employment? Can I just have that time to figure out what's
Wow.
next? So that was really helpful. I'd also say, oh, that's a good takeaway, like the sabbatical, to
Yeah.
give you that space. But yes, absolutely, I wanted to know part of the reason that I would be able to stay in San Francisco is if I could actually get a job. That was
Yeah.
a big part. So certainly that was a major goal of mine of attending these events is, of course, yeah, make friends, find interesting people, find your community, but also who can employ me so I can afford this very expensive lifestyle and cost of living that is San
No
Francisco.
kidding. I know. That's crazy. And then what was it feel like? Because some people who haven't lived in San Francisco, they have a hard time and they work in tech and they feel very well connected. Like, do you feel like there's a real difference in like opportunities and connectedness in Vancouver versus SF? Because I do feel like there's a pretty strong tech scene in Vancouver, but Do you feel like they're on par with each other or big difference?
Oh, a huge difference. And I was someone who part of my role at the university was to go out to different events and promote, like, hey, come to BC. We have the best talent. We have all this opportunities. We have great government support for building a startup ecosystem. So I was out there, evangelizing why Vancouver is a great place to start a company, to hire talent. And I really believed everything I said. However, coming to San Francisco, it was, whoa, no, this is a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
There's great events that I would attend or organize that brought together young professionals that want to be in tech or support the tech ecosystem. But those might happen, I don't know, like once a month. Whereas in San Francisco, it was just every day there's something different. There's women in tech, there's
Oh,
women
I
in
know.
startups, there's, engineers, it was amazing for a person that's new, that doesn't have a job. So your full time, work plan is to go to could be, or was in my case, to go to
Completely.
events so that I can meet people, see what the scene was, and then
Yeah.
get connected from there.
Yeah, I do feel like so I've lived in San Francisco, New York, Miami, and I'm from the Boston area. So I
Mhm.
graduated college in Boston and lived there and worked there in finance, not in tech. But once I moved to San Francisco, I broke into tech. Then I was in tech in New York and Miami. And like obviously, San Francisco's a polarizing city, has a lot of problems. But I just find that and I'm older, so I'm coming up on 38. Ryan's coming up on 40. We're kind of like well connected and established, but we moved there in 2012. So I don't know how old I was then. Math is hard, even though I studied finance. I don't know,
Yeah, I
26 or
forget ages.
27.
I'm a millennial.
26, and like I can't recommend it enough. Like if you're young and you can like pull it off, like go there. And I was actually just chatting with someone who's based in LA, which is not that far from San Francisco. It's a very short flight. It's like, I don't know, 45-minute flight or something. Like it's very easy to go. And he was like going on and on about Bubble, which is the like no code app development builder, kind of like Squarespace, but for apps. And I don't know. I had already said like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to kind of partner with them for River or something. And then I said something later on after he'd been talking about it for a while. He's like, oh, so you know who you've heard of Bubble? I was like, yeah, of course I've heard of Bubble. They've been around for like 10 years. And like, but he thought that like Bubble was new and that he was like on the cutting edge by
Mhm.
like being into Bubble. And like, this is the type of thing that's very hard to explain to people who aren't like really really in it, is they don't know that they're not in it, like they just, and he's like, without, it's hard to tell them that they're not in it without sounding mean or like arrogant or
Mhm.
whatever, but it's osmosis, it's overhearing things in the coffee shop, it's like sitting on the bar, like it's getting invited to friends parties and then like, oh, the CEO of whatever crazy company is there, like it is just like hard to explain and until you've like lived it and experienced it. So like I was at a meetup, like a Solana meetup in Boston, and someone was trying to just, they're in their early 20s, they're trying to decide should they stay in Boston or move to San Francisco. And I'm just like, move to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Just move there right now. Just go. You can always come back. It'll be here. So yeah, even though like I'm annoyed at San Francisco for like their like uber liberal policies and taxes and the homeless situation. It's just like if you're younger and you're really trying to break into tech, I mean, Miami is constantly touting that they're the new tech. Austin, I spent 6 weeks in Austin. It's just
Mhm.
not the same. It's just like it's
No,
not the same.
it's very different. I mean, there's definitely the trade-offs. I was so surprised going into the drugstores, and everything's behind these glasses, and you just like
So annoying.
now I'm in Vegas. I don't see that at all. I can just like grab what I want, but then there, everything you have to find someone because of
Yeah.
the theft and shoplifting. So there are things like that are quite shocking. Or I tell
For sure.
people my rent, like I guess I can say this now. I was in an illegal sublet. Like I was renting from someone who was grandfathered into a really great rent rate,
Mhm.
and I didn't have a dishwasher or a laundry machine or any of that. Plus, I always had to be really cautious of like, oh, I'm sharing this place with so and so. He'll be back soon, which is
Yeah, he'll be back soon. We're roommates.
yeah, we were roommates. You had to do that thing, and that was the only way to afford, being in this really expensive city. So definitely there's the trade-offs, but the amount of really great friends that I've made, or again, like you said, overhearing all these conversations, like that's the other thing is I feel like I'm very observant and I don't want to say I'm eavesdropping, but hey, if you're talking loudly, like I'll probably hear. And then that was one of my ins. Or I used to do a lot of shared Uber rides and I
Yeah.
got so many job opportunities and new friends.
For
I
shared
was
Uber
talking
rides.
to the person in my Uber ride. So I guess it does pay to be extroverted like myself and just to be really curious and want to talk to people. But that's something I wouldn't get here where I'm currently at in Vegas because everyone gets in their own car to drive somewhere. Like we don't have that shared system. So I completely support you in encouraging people that are soul searching, wanting to break into tech, that's still the right city to.
Yeah, if you're young, like you don't have to be there forever, but I do think like even 2 years will 2, 3 years will like get you pretty far. I was there for 7. Um, and then yeah, it's just like a density. I mean, New York is pretty good for tech. There's quite a bit going on, although the industries tend to be different. It tends to be more like fintech, health tech companies. But there isn't so much of a saturation because there's tons of normal people who are doctors and lawyers and or comedians or actors. Like there's just like a yeah, the density of tech just like isn't there. And then I will say like the San Francisco ecosystem, I really felt this badly when I was in Miami. I spent a year living in Miami, like trying to kind of figure that out. Everyone was saying it's like, a great budding tech scene, but I just felt like the community infrastructure just wasn't there. And it's really hard to explain. But I just felt like in San Francisco or New York, if you start kind of showing your mug at places, maybe give a talk, people start kind of opening doors for you and noticing that you're showing up or you're contributing in some way. But I felt like Miami is extremely closed off. Like it's just really hard to like I don't know. Like the cool kids, they're already at the lunch table and there's like more seats or I'm not really sure like what. And then just the startup infrastructure there, like there's a ton of VCs and founders who've moved there, but they're not really like bringing their whole office or bringing their whole like team to Miami. So there's a lot of like kind of individuals in a way and not organizations. Um, yeah, and then like we participated in Miami Hack Week, which was a really big event. Like
Wow,
I think
congrats.
like 400 people there, 80 projects got submitted. We won first place. We're
Yay.
supposed to win a $10,000 prize. Couldn't really get a hold of the organizer for many, many
Oh,
months. Turns out the money doesn't exist. Sponsorship fell through. And like,
okay.
I think he was like an earnest guy working really hard, but just like in San Francisco, if an organizer had been like, "Hey, a sponsor fell through. Can someone spot this prize money?"
Yeah, someone else would
It would
probably.
happen in 6 hours. Like it would be done day of. But in Miami, like no one cared. Like I don't know. There's just the infrastructure, like the foundation, just isn't there. I think so. I think that's tough. And then I think a lot of Austin is like older people who have done really well and they want to like save on taxes or have like a better lifestyle and so they move to Austin, but I'm not sure it's as young and hungry as San Francisco, so slightly different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
my
like
take.
it's the same. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Again, as a Canadian, I will admit I knew that San Francisco and New York were very different, but I didn't truly appreciate how much each city, like even within the same state, has its own unique personality and infrastructure. So I appreciate hearing your observations of
Yeah,
Austin and Miami, having lived
and
there.
then Boston, which I'm near, I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire now, which is like an hour and 10 minutes north of Boston. And my husband and I went to college in Boston. We should love that city, but we don't. Like it's just extremely academic.
Mm,
Just like it's so academic and definitely not as ambitious, definitely not as like hacky. And like literally people will still ask me where I went to college.
okay.
And I'm just like I plenty of things on the menu they could ask me about. They could
Right.
ask me about getting venture funding from Jason Calacanis and Balaji
Mhm.
Srinivasan. They could ask me about starting a company. They could ask me about all the cities I've lived in. But nope, they just have to fucking ask me where I went to school. And I just like, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like there's other things to ask about now.
I don't care, you know, or like people introduce themselves who are like 60 and they will say, oh, my name is so-and-so. I graduated from which and which place. And I'm like, oh my God, what have you been doing since then? Like, it's just, yeah, it's just such an academic town. It kind of like drives me crazy. And it's the town where everyone asks about patents the most.
Oh, interesting.
Like, where'd you go to college? And then, oh, you have a startup. Did you patent the thing? Like, did you patent it? I'm like, no, we don't patent SaaS. Like, that's not a thing. But everyone asks you if you patent it. It's just like, yeah, it's just an old school, like academic town that it doesn't realize that it's just like not at the cool table.
That's funny. I should. I'm planning a trip to Boston in the fall. I'll make sure to ask everyone about their patents.
Yeah. That's what make sure you hit me up because I would love to see you in person
Ooh, we
in
should chat
Boston.
about that.
I'd love to talk about this like Web3 angle things that you're working on because I have accidentally found myself running a Web3-ish startup. And I'll tell you the backstory. Like when I started the All In meetups initially in Miami, so Melissa Varelli was doing this episode 100 listening party in San Francisco. She asked me to come out to it. I was like, oh, I just moved to Miami. Maybe I'll do one in Miami and then I can meet cool Miami people. Honestly, I had been going to the tech events and they were just huge ragers, like 200 people, like very strong cocktails and like very loud DJs. You couldn't hear anything. But the things I could hear was either someone trying to like sell me their boat that they regretted buying, or it was like all crypto boys, like so hardcore crypto boys. And I was just like, where are the builders? Where are the neckbeards? Like where I was just like trying to find my people. And so like admittedly, I literally started All In meetups to like get away from crypto people because I just felt like that was like the entire like that was the only thing anyone was talking about at these tech events. But now I probably shouldn't even publish this podcast, but now like the majority of our biggest our biggest community is a Web3 community. It's Super Team. It's part of Solana.
Mm-hmm.
Did not think anything of it. They had 40,000 followers on Twitter. I was like, they're small potatoes, no big deal. They are like orders of magnitude our biggest community on River. They launched January 10th. At the time of this recording, it's like August 20th. They have hosted 700 events on River. They're lunatics. They love to get together. They have like 17,000 members like in their community. And then half of our, like, so we're about to close our pre-seed round and half of our cap table is Web3. And I've been in, like, fundraising has been very difficult, A, because I don't know how to fundraise, but B, like, the Web3 people are like, you're not Web3 enough. And the Web2 people are spooked by how much Web3 we have going on. And so we're like, we joke that we're like Web 2.5 and no one wants us. We're just this like stepchild. And I'm just like, I'm figuring it out, but it was not like, hey, I'm like a cool Web3 girl. Let me build Web3 startup. I'm just like by accident trying to build a Web3-ish startup.
That is so interesting because even I know your bio was on the accidental creator of the All In meetup. So but I love that. I think that just shows some things I really appreciate about you and things I value is keeping that open mind and then staying curious. Like, okay, I might not fit into this, but all right, if it happens, then great. And even earlier when we were talking about you not fully understanding what Farcaster is, which is fine. I think a lot of us also don't fully understand it, but we go there because we meet interesting people and we find a topic that delights us. And then once you also get to know people and okay, this is the space where they'll be sharing their content, then that also draws you back to continue to go to Farcaster or a specific channel if that's where you'll find a content creator that you admire or respect. But when we were talking about that earlier and you said, in River, we let our organizers like take the data, they can keep it. So there are a lot of things you do already that are in the ethos of Web3 and decentralization.
Totally.
Community people back, ownership of what they do and create.
Yes. And even beyond the, like taking your data with you. So when I was hosting the All In meetups on Luma, one of my frustrations was I knew who RSVP, but I didn't know who was attending. And
Mhm.
then Jason Calacanis was coming out to Miami, and he and I were going to host like a private Q&A event. And I wanted to invite people who'd been showing up to the events. And I had no idea, I remember kind of who's coming, but not like exactly who was coming. And so I was like racking my brain. I was like, oh my God, if only I had a list of like who's
Mhm.
been to 3 events, who's been to 4 events. So I tried to give those people priority invite access. And so when we were building River, I was like, I want to know who's coming to the events because that's very valuable, to like a community organizer and influencer.
Absolutely.
And then, so it's like, okay, we'll let people check in at the events. And then Ryan, my co-founder, who's also my husband, is like, no one's going to just check in for no reason. I'm like, okay, then we'll give them digital badges. It'll be like a Boy Scout badge on your vest or like a passport stamp. And he's like, no one's going to care about that. I'm like, well, maybe they will.
They're definitely like
And then Akshay, so after I talked to Balaji on Farcaster, I think he like put me in, I think he told Akshay, well, Akshay had already seen some of my work with All In and like included me in a keynote, but then
that.
I don't know, Akshay BD, who's like big deal in Solana Foundation and Super Team and stuff, DM'd me and he was just like all about the badges. And I was like, okay, I thought they were just like a dumb Girl Scout thing. Like I didn't think that people would like them that much, but he really wanted to have people check in and then mint that as like a POAP, like a
Mhm.
proof of attendance, and have that be minted into an NFT. And it turns out it was just like one day of work to integrate with TipLink. So we're like, cool, no big deal. And then like this is the whole reason we're like a Web3 ish company. I mean, besides my idea of decentralized, like letting hosts step up, and it's very decentralized and like democratic kind of in a way of
Mhm.
organizing yourself. And then the influencer getting their own data. So, if Spotify, like you know who follows you, but you don't get to like take that data with you. So like, okay, you can have your data. And then the badges and like these three like little tiny decisions basically put us on the path of Web3, which I did not intend to.
That's a great story. And it's just so funny how you thought, okay, this is just a little thing to help me organize and keep track of attendees. But actually, our attendees love them and they want that. And absolutely, if you go to a lot of these Web3 events or even at FarCon, which was the in person gathering of, big Farcaster users and fans of what they're building, each little side event, there was this fellow who would bring like a physical POAP, like in the purple coloring, and you would tap it, and that would give you your POAP that you
Okay.
attended, like the art night or the music night or the happy
Yeah.
hour. It's just a fun way to one like collect and have these memories, but then you can see other people that have attended as well. Or I know
Yes.
from some of these other events, when you sign in with your wallet, and if you've written your real name or whatever, then you can also see, oh, you both attended this. That's kind of a fun way to build those connections.
Yeah.
Have a way to talk to this person.
For sure. And we have a wallet because Super Team reimbursed people for their events on
Mm.
River via like Solana. So yeah, we have the wallet and I think we had like a MetaMask login. We might have deprecated that, but we'll put that back in. And yeah, so I'm just like accidentally running all in meetups, accidentally running a Web3 company. And then like, and I'm trying hard. Like I read Rewrite Own by Chris Dixon and like, I'm
Nice.
definitely trying. But when I went to the Solana Foundation, like kickoff meetup in Boston, I just like showed up to the event and people were like, oh, do you know this person in this protocol? I'm like, oh, no, no, don't know what you're talking about. So then I think they just think I'm like nobody, which is kind of true. I'm nobody. And then they're eventually like, oh, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm with River. And they're like, oh, like, are you like on the marketing team there? I'm like, oh, no, I'm the CEO. And they're like, what?
Like, oh, you made the time to come here. That's like so great.
They're like, how do you not know about this protocol? I'm like, guys, I don't know. I'm here, but I don't know. I'm doing my best, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm just finding myself in a whole new culture, a whole new like world that I don't always understand. And then like we've been wanting to automate approving hosts on the platform, but it's like there is not one size fits all because Tim Ferriss and This Week in Startups, they want like headshot of your face, full name, LinkedIn, a bio that seems like something actual real about you, Whereas Super Team and Solana is just like, definitely not a human's name, definitely not a face of a
Yeah,
person.
sure.
And then just like their whole bio would just be like degen, like hashtag degen, whatever. So you're like, how do I make a decision? Like, we're trying to thin slice, like, will this person be a good host? And you're just like, I don't know. I hope it works out. And then you meet them in person. And they're like, oh, I'm this crazy handle. And you're like, oh my God, hello. They're great people. It's just very, yeah, it's difficult to build a product that like serves the Anon Web3 vibes and the like old school, 40 plus Tim Ferriss fans.
Yeah, they are very different. But I will say, just to your other point of, I don't know this protocol or this chain. Honestly, there's so many new things and developments in Web3 every day. Like, it moves so quickly that anyone that says they're an expert, like, there are people that have been there, OG since the Bitcoin white paper, and that's great, and they have the
Yeah.
experience of seeing the cycles. But there's also just so many new things that I definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't feel embarrassed or intimidated, Ray, like, around any of this, because there really is just like, we're all learning and we're all
Yeah.
experimenting with new things all the time. And that's why I tell anyone who is joining Web3, like starting their first marketing career in Web3 or something, that don't be intimidated. There's so many resources and we're all just figuring this out together.
I read the Bitcoin white paper when it came out. Like I was kind of like I don't know if Ryan wants me to tell this, but he was like trying to buy modafinil online or something.
Okay.
And at the time you can only buy it with Bitcoin. So like we were like, what is this thing? Definitely like was there when Bitcoin was coming out, but I just didn't get sucked into the like Web3 culture fully, which I do feel like is similar, but like a little, I don't know, just because you own Bitcoin, for example, doesn't mean that you are like in on Web3.
Right. There's the personality. I think, like myself and you, for going out to these super team events where we want to get out and meet the people, in addition to, the faces behind these products and the creators and the builders. I mean, some folks, absolutely, they're like, all right, Bitcoin is my hedge against inflation. I own it. That's fine. I don't need to meet
That
it.
was more me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was more like my approach, less about like being full Web3. But Galena and Jackson, shout out to them. I met them in Miami. They were like very kind to like tell this old hag like what Web3 is. I'm like, but what is it? And like we were all sitting in a hot tub and they're like, yeah, this. I'm like, yeah, but what is it?
No, that's good. That's how you get to like the most simplest explanation or form, is really just like keep asking those questions. So
Yes.
I'm a fan of that. And I guess one last thing I'll say about the Web3 culture, because in this last year where, working on a finance product and making a pivot from a very crypto native audience to a more mainstream audience, it's been very interesting for me to see and compare and contrast those different types of audiences immediately. So what I mean by that is, I was at this, like, women in finance program, because I thought, okay, I want to learn more about finance. I don't come from finance, but I am working on a decentralized finance product, so I should meet other people in the space. And everyone was lovely. They were great, were very supportive. But then immediately after this event, I went to a crypto women Web3, shout out SheFi. It was a SheFi meetup. So,
Cool.
Onboarding and
Yeah.
educating women into the space. And just everyone, like, the ethos is very, very collaborative, very like, let's connect now. How can I help you? And it's all very genuine. And I think it has to do with just that speed and pace of technology and movements and building in Web3. Like, everyone was exchanging telegrams, taking pictures, like, oh, you're building this, let me test it for you. Or definitely follow up with me, maybe I can invest. It was just so immediate. And then
Yeah.
even at the event, the organizers, on the panel, they all had wonderful experience around how they had started their different communities in Web3. One was this young mom, and she created this whole NFT project and just wanted to create more inclusive spaces for both women, but also moms. So I thought that was super cool. And my point is, at the end of their panel, they turned to the room and said, hey, we want all of you to introduce yourselves. Like, we want to learn about the audience and who's here.
Yeah.
So just that spirit of wanting to connect and understand was just so strong in this Web3 event. Yeah, contrasted, because I just come from this more women in finance event, which was also great, but it didn't have that same, like, let's connect right now, here and there.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, my background was initially in finance. I studied that in college and I worked in custodial banking for a few years when I first graduated. And I mean, part of it was Boston, part of it's finance, part of it's just like old school stuff, but it's very much like, hey, there's a ladder here. Like, go ahead and try to climb it.
Mm.
Whereas I feel like all the Web3 people I've met are just, they're very like, very pro growth, very like, they don't think it's a zero sum game. I think this is the difference. I think that a lot of the Web3 people I meet, they don't think that life is a zero sum game. They, you know, I especially like older women who work, I think they're probably all aging out and retiring now, but there used to be like a world where there was only room for one woman on the
Mm.
board or one woman on the leadership team. So if it's not me, it's, if it's me or
Right.
is I think
More
like the kind
competition.
of vibe. Yeah, and now obviously that's changed, but I do feel like Web3, they're a little more like the Rebel Alliance. They are kind of the underdog. They are trying to kind of bring a new vision of the world. So it's like no one's going to do that alone. So they just have to be a lot more collaborative. And I think the tide is moving that way. It's just like slow, and like I think it will snap very quickly, or it'll feel like slow, and then all of a sudden we'll like turn around and feel that the world is much more Web3 than I think we think it will be. But like literally just yesterday, Ryan got an email from eBay saying they're no longer accepting American Express as payment.
Oh,
Which like they didn't say why, but like in a way that's like a huge that is a huge shift to like, okay, there's like 4 credit card carriers in the world that are, and we're not gonna carry this one anymore. Like I don't know which way they're headed, but like
mhm.
if they start accepting Bitcoin and not American Express, like that's a pretty tectonic shift. Is
Yeah.
is the way. Yeah.
Well, there's something you said earlier around the ladder or the zero sum game. There's even some Web3 women groups I'm part of. One is called, I think, Growing the Pie. And there's that
Yes.
sentiment of like, okay, yeah, it's not like it's only this big. Let's just think of ways we can grow it together so that we can
Yes.
all win and find success and find what we're looking for.
Yep. I'm all about that. And yeah, it's like, why are we why are we cutting up this very tiny slice of pie? Are you going to the summit? What are you doing? What's the next year look like for you?
Yeah, well, okay, the summit is in less than a month.
I know, I gotta get my shit together.
I love our little women's chat. I know at the summit, at the brunch last year, I was excitedly adding everyone. I'm like, join the Telegram, join the Telegram. So we can
Yes,
all stay in
good.
touch.
Good.
And definitely, as I shared earlier, I made a couple of really good one-on-one connections. I've met up with some of the women since, and it was just really great because that there's a certain type of individual who's open-minded and curious and on top of tech, that kind of person who comes to the summit. So that
Yep.
was really great. So I'm excited to see everyone again. I have not booked my lodging, and I won't dox you or anything, but I tried to book your place and it is sold out. So I need to
It's full.
try and find
Okay.
something close. Last year I actually shared a room with another female. So we had never met. But again, I just felt like, okay, you're a female, I'm just assuming you're trustworthy. And
Yeah,
it
it'll
was
be
like
fine.
hitting it off and staying friends and have
Yep.
a little sleepover conversation at night. So I'm
Amazing.
wondering if maybe there's other women that are still looking for a roommate.
I
Maybe.
bet there are. Yeah, I would hit up the channel. Yeah, I bet. Like I know Rachel Azeroff maybe is looking for a place to stay. Um, yeah, I need to do more planning there. And then, are you staying in Vegas for the year? Are you nomading still? What are you doing?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think this is a great home base, and I have wanted to, contribute to the community, find the other expats. There are a lot. I guess similar to what you said about the other places like Austin and Miami, there's a lot of folks that have, had success with selling their startup or doing really well as being an early employee, and then they come to this type of place that's a low cost of living, no state income tax. And so I've met a good community of people here. Like I've found these like-minded folks. It takes a bit more work to get people out
Yeah.
of their houses into cars, into a venue. So all that,
Into their nice, big, spacious houses.
yeah,
Out
exactly.
of their nice, spacious
That like
houses.
you
Yeah.
would never in a big metropolitan city. So I guess I do want to continue staying here because I've made some
Yeah.
good connections, friends, events. But I love the flexibility of freedom of working in Web3 or for still some tech companies, not all, a lot of them are return to office. Thankfully, again, the ethos of Web3 and crypto is decentralization, be effective
Yes.
as long as you find ways to connect. So who knows? I definitely love traveling every month to these different conferences to do partnerships, investor relations, meet your community. And I have lots of family and friends all over the world. So I'm very grateful for where we are in life. Like I look back, 6 years ago, I don't think this could have happened, or pre-pandemic. It really is just
Yeah.
like the fact that we've all proven that you can be effective in certain roles remote.
Yeah, I mean, we're completely remote. I mean, Ryan and I are married and we're co-founders and we live in the same house, but Bernie is in Poland and we've got people in Austin, someone in Austin and Brazil. You
Wow.
know,
I didn't know
I
how
was
big
gonna,
your team was. That's really interesting.
yeah, and Anna's in Zurich. And then we have two designers, one in Poland, one in Portugal. So yeah, we're completely decentralized. I was gonna say somehow I've never been to Vegas, but I mention a lot because
Oh,
someday Ryan and I want to start our own like startup town city. Um,
okay. Say more.
probably in upstate New Hampshire. It's like my dream to buy a big plot of land and like not cult at all. It'll be completely free market, but seed this like town with two big businesses. So one would be like a hotel retreat space where people could come do like team offsites, or maybe they just want to like write their book for the summer.
Mhm.
So it'd be like an all inclusive retreat, like in the woods, but it'd be like based around productivity. So like great Wi-Fi, coffee, some kind of startup-y rituals, like maybe a morning stand-up. I mean, I hated stand-ups. Like I hate agile stand-ups, but if you wanted to be like, hey, this is what I'm working on today, and just like
Yeah, stay accountable, share.
yeah, and then like maybe Friday demo days or like little lunch and learns and
Love that.
host some small summits and stuff. And I feel like that would be like it would bring some culture and intrigue to the like to our town. Give people a way to like test out if they would be interested in moving there. And then Ryan probably would start like a robotics, I don't know, R&D type place where you could like do some robotics testing or build some things, and then we'd have like warehouse space if you wanted to expand. So we'd probably seed it with like two small businesses, but the whole goal is, Ryan and I love being outdoors and nature, and we're really interested in saving money. It'd be great
Mhm.
if our living costs were like half or a third of what they would be in New York or San Francisco, but we're unwilling to give up culture. Like, we don't want to just live alone in the woods with like no one interesting and like energetic around. We don't want to live in a place that has like no food diversity.
Mhm.
And so it's just like, someday will we have enough kind of like clout to like convince a few hundred people to move? I think we will. But anytime I mention this, anytime we like bridge this topic, people are like, you can't start new cities. And we're like, Vegas. Vegas is a new city.
That is actually a good example, and a lot of what you're saying. Well, okay, one, if you come when you come by, definitely hit me up. We'll plan some things. I will
Okay,
say that something that gets forgotten. A lot of people, the impression is, oh, Vegas, Sin City, gamble, debauchery, degenerates, and sure, you have all that. You can, yeah, party, drink, play a lot of poker and gamble. But something I really appreciate is actually the desert nature. Like you have these beautiful canyons, the Valley of Fire, Red Rock Canyon, Mount Charleston. So there's this wonderful nature. It feels very magical to have the red rocks against the desert sun.
blue sky.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, you have these beautiful sunsets. So definitely, even when you talk about the city with retreats, like there's a lot of great glamping sites that are just a couple hours away, like into Utah, Arizona. So Vegas is a great base for nature as well. Like my husband and I, we have this annual Grand Canyon trip where we like run down to the bottom, back up, then we camp, or we do a lot of fun road trips. So potential for
Amazing.
you and your husband to come join.
Amazing. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. Well, is there anything you want to plug?
I can't think of anything right now. I just really love, getting a chance to talk to you, the people you've connected me with in terms of that list you had of here's community builders you should follow. Like that helped me meet other people in this field and not just Web3. There's, like
Oh
tech
yeah.
builders. And so I always enjoy that because I think for whatever you do, be it a career step or potential business partners, it's wonderful to just expand your network and see who's there that is aligned.
Yeah, I feel like the world can be super connected. I get a lot of people ask me for intros to like JCal or like other people, and I'm just like, just DM them. Like, I'm not gonna like go around and as a rule, like I don't do intros just because I don't want to overstep or whatever. But like I met JCal through a DM on Twitter.
That's really great. And that's
Not
also
saying,
empowering. Like, take it into
yeah.
your own control, send these DMs.
So many people will be like, "Can you send this to JCal?" I'm like, "Well, have you sent it to him yourself?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, I mean, start there. Yeah, I feel like the internet can be very flat and like very connected. Obviously there's a ton of noise and they're not going to just respond to everything, but if you have a real value prop or something that is actually like really relevant to them, I bet they read most of their DMs.
Yeah, that's a good point. Wait, I did think of one plug, if
Oh,
that's
plug it.
okay, is that I, have been very connected to the startup world, dabbled a bit in startups. I tried to do a fashion rental startup. Did not
Mm,
succeed. Unit economics were terrible, but I learned a lot, of course. But I love that during
always
this conversation, yeah, you've mentioned your husband a few times, and so I will say my husband is the smarter one who's doing his own startup right now. It's
do. Well, what's he
math
working on?
tutoring AI, and so maybe I can plug him because he's my
Yeah,
biggest
what
investment.
is yeah, what's math tutoring? What is the website?
It's Groccoli .ai. So the idea is like broccoli is good for you, and grok is, as we all know, to understand. So yeah, he's been working on this K-5 math tutoring
Okay,
product and finding really good traction with special needs families, or families that can't
cool.
afford tutoring but like really need that personalization. So I've been really proud of
Gotcha.
what he's building. We don't actually work together. I think it's awesome you and your husband do. I think that'd be another good conversation on like startup founders and married couples. But I am one of his biggest fans. So I'd
Yeah,
love to
I'm
play.
sure you're in a way. I mean, this is part of the reason why Ryan and I decided to be founders because I'm like, I'm going to be telling you everything. You're going to be like giving me input on stuff all the time. Like, why not just make it official? So I'm sure you're kind of like an unofficial like co-founder if you're kind of testing the app or like tuning, I don't know, chiming in on stuff. So that's good. And I'm worried you broke up a little bit. So just say the name of it one more time.
Groccoli AI is the
Correctly.
math tutoring startup.
Love it. Yeah, that's a great name. I feel like names are hard to come by these days.
Yeah, I'll share that
Everything's
feedback with him. It's yeah, he'll appreciate that.
yeah, everything's taken. That's fantastic. Well, Pawan, this was really fun. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, and I think it's very cool of us that we're just like, hey, let's just
Yeah, just get on
record
there.
it as a podcast.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm really excited to see you again in person in a few weeks at the All In Summit.
Yeah, I gotta get my shit together and get that whole women's brunch plan. But yeah, I think it's happening again for sure. So it's gonna be fun to see you.
It'll be great, and we can plan our outfits again in our women's chat.
I know. I'm doing less costumey this year because I'm like very tired from buying all these outfits that I probably won't wear again. So yeah, I will not clash with the vibe, but I might not be winning any like costume contests this year. But it's gonna be fun. I always have a really good time, and everyone's asking me like, "Who are the speakers?" I'm like, "A, I don't have any inside information, and B, like, do I care? Not really. I'm
Yeah,
sure
the
they'll be great."
people yeah, obviously it's great to get the content, but I also just love like the longest lasting thing was all these new connections and
Yeah,
people I met.
yeah. It's like literally they put everything online, so it's really not about the content or the speakers. It's more about kind of being around, kind of magical. It's a magical feeling to be around. I think it's just people are more growth minded who go to All In Summit and politically open minded. Like, there are definitely like all groups on the spectrum of politics there, but I just find that like most people go there, they can hear someone else's differing opinion. They can hear it without just like getting completely tilted. And that's like pretty cool.
Just that you can keep an open mind and hear a lot of different opinions and just be curious about different
Yeah.
points of view and knowledge. So I
Yeah,
that's why I think we connect with the other people there, because at least you have that value.
yep,
Of, hey, I'm willing to hear your side of things and your opinion.
totally. It's gonna be fun. Okay, well, I can't wait to see you in LA.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks again, Ray, for the invitation, and great to learn more about you through this chat.
You too. Okay, have a great one. Bye.
You too. Bye.